Now let's take a look at dealing with the elbows and working with um, setting the elbow up so it doesn't crash as much into the muscle. We should be able to drive the bicep up a bit once the muscle starts to flex and drive some of this out of the way so that we don't have this immediate crash happening. I mean, this character is terrible because as soon as the arm gets any distance away from its initial angle, it just starts to crash into each other. And that's just going to look terrible during animation if we're going to try and take a character like this and get it to deform. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the built-in deformers in the skin modifier. What we have is a couple different ones. I was just playing with the one there, so I'm just going to remove it quickly and start from scratch. What we're going to do is we're going to look at grabbing an area of vertices and apply it to an area. I'm going to first generate some of the problems and show you where some of the issues lie in using this system and where you have to be careful. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look at grab some of the vertices I need. And then I want to fix the area. First, let's start with the three different type of gizmos there are deformers. There's a joint angle deformer, bulge angle deformer, and morph angle deformer. Joint deformers is designed strictly to deal with just the joint area, so it will work over a joint area very nicely. Bulge angle deformer would be doing something like the flexing in the bicep, and the morph angle deformer will take the angle and morph the character for you. Something to note is none of these can be mirrored to the other side in skin. In Max 7, Skin Morph has been added, which basically takes the place of this one here, and is a far more robust tool, allows for mirroring from one side to the other, and works far better on the joints that have more than one rotation angle. That's something else I should point out. Essentially, none of these can be really used effectively on something like a shoulder or a hip very well, because as you start dealing with Euler rotations and you have multiple axes rotating on a joint system, these will start to cause problems that you simply can't get around. You can get them to work to some degree, but you'll always sort of run into a problem. And like I've said, trying to create all of the targets needed to get the kind of flexing that's required throughout an entire joint system like the shoulder area really isn't a good job for this sort of system anyhow. I'd much prefer to do it with some stretchy bones and set that up and do it with skinning. On the elbow, though, we can use them. Let's start with the joint angle deformer. So what we do is we pick the vertices we're going to use. We also choose the bone that's going to be the bone that's going to drive it. So the first bone in the arm is the one that's going to determine the angle between basically the upper arm and the lower arm. So this envelope here that I've just picked is the first bone in the chain, and that was the bone that was actually the full length, and we'd shrunk it down shorter in the original DVDs in the first two. So we're going to use it and get the angle between the two. And we have those vertices picked, and we say add gizmo, adds a joint angle deformer. And what this gives you then is the ability to be able to edit the lattice, so the new rollouts appeared here. And what you can do is you can pick vertices in the lattice and you can adjust them. Now you can't really change the amount of control points or anything. You're pretty much stuck with what you've got, which isn't so bad because often you just need to tweak it a bit. There is, however, a far bigger problem with the way this works is, watch what happens as I scrub the timeline and my forearm starts to rip now. You can see that I'm no longer getting a nice soft twist in my forearm. Essentially what happens is the joint angle deformer immediately takes over from any of the skinning that was done on the vertices that were included inside of that joint angle deformer. So although it would make short work of fixing the issues and trying to keep volume in an elbow, it really unfortunately gets in the way of a character like this that has short fat arms, and we don't have an area that is just affected by these two joints. It's very soft all the way up. It's soft in here because of the upper arm twist bone, so unfortunately this system just isn't going to be usable. Like I say, it'll work on simple characters. Again, if you have long, thin, noodly arms on cartoony characters, this sort of system works reasonably well. You can twist it into a better spot, but again, we're not going to use it, so I'm going to say remove. The bulge angle deformer would be designed just for dealing with the bulges. So if I add one of those, and flex it, you can see it doesn't actually bend with the system at all. So it doesn't actually bend with it. Now, although it's not causing us any issues with the twisting of the arm and tearing now, it might be a little bit difficult to get this to fix the joint system the way we really want. Certainly could be used to some degree, but you can also see there's quite a lack of control over how you can use this system. Because you don't have as many points as you really need to set it up the way you want. Once you've set and moved it around, at whatever angle you happen to be at, it will then deform to that point. And you can see it deforming as we go in and out of that angle now. Usually it takes multiple angles to be able to get it correct. Once again, this is going to be pretty limiting and probably not going to solve the issues of such a complex model. The last one's called the morph angle deformer. This one's far more flexible because we're going to actually be able to deal with every single vertex in the model. Now, of course, this makes it far more time consuming to fix the area and to work on the angles and the muscle bulging, but we have complete control over essentially remodeling the character the way we need. So let's add morph angle deformer. What it adds is, again, the new rollout at the bottom, and this is essentially the morphing list. Here's the base morph, and then what we have the ability to do is add from stack or add from node. I like to add from stack myself and work on it this way. So what we can do is we add on top of the stack now a temporary edit mesh. In Max 7, again, this is nice because you can actually use the edit poly and you have all the edge loops and edge rings and poly tools at your disposal. So using this now, what we can do is we can simply bend our elbow to the point at which it's going to be the morph target's going to be set at, and we can remodel the elbow joint now using this edit mesh to make it look the way we want. Let's just first speed up our interface a bit. I'm using software ZBuffer so that the capture system will capture this, and so it's very slow for me on this, but it's always nice just to be able to speed up the workflow a little bit by hiding what you don't need anyways. We don't even really need the hand area, so I'll just hide that off as well. So now what we can do is, using vertex or any of the modeling tools in here, I'm going to go in and I'm going to reshape this and reform this. You can't change the vertex counts again. You can't go and add cuts or do anything like extrude a face that's going to increase the vertex count or decrease the vertex count, because again, we're dealing with morphing, so morphing needs the same amount of vertices in each model. Soft selections are great here. I use a lot of edge distance because as you um, flex the character without edge distance on, it's not actually going to respect the fact that it's traveling over surface. It's going to take whatever's the nearest vertices to it. So with edge distance on and set up, what we can do is and just to note as well, right now I'm working in a local mode. That's why you can see them all expanding out. So I've got local vertices picked, and that's expanding all of the vertices at the same time. This would actually be probably a good way to set up and deal with just setting up a bit of a flex on the bicep to start with. So let's actually set that up. And again, we're gonna do this at frame 20. We're gonna pick the angle that was set at frame 20. I'm gonna work in screen mode a bit. And now let's go in and start actually working with correcting some of this. So I'm going to try and shove some of the muscle up out of the way to compress it a whole lot. Using my soft selections to make sure I have a nice soft area working on it. Looks like these areas are going to have to get pulled down and out of the way a bit. As well as we're going to need to try and keep some of the volume in the inside of the arm here. And that's going to mean pulling some of these out. So I'm just going to grab the very center of the arm and try and keep a bit of the volume here. So, like I say, it's a bit of a time-consuming process, but you've got full control over keeping the model looking exactly the way you want. We can also stretch out the back of the arm, make it pull down a bit more. As the elbow pulls, these muscles get pulled down, stretched down a bit. And then untangling all this mess and trying to push it out of the way is going to be the hard part on this character. It's going to take quite a bit of work to really get this all looking the way we want. Soft selections are fantastic for this sort of work because you really need things moving evenly, like skin flexing over the surface. Without it, it would be a lot of pulling vertex by vertex and probably very time consuming to even get anything close to what you wanted. The soft selections make it far easier to shuffle the vertexes around and get it looking a little more natural quickly. You can see we're getting still an enormous amount of crashing. I'm not even sure how we're going to get around this. The muscle system, the muscles in the character are very large. Okay, so let's accept some of this as to what we've got so far. I'm just going to do a little extra tweak here. Push some more of this up out of the way. Maybe even grab the bicep here and do a little bit more pushing up out of the way. So let's actually put a bit of flex in here too. Maybe it needs to be bulging up a bit, and we could even affect other areas if we wanted. So let's say that looks pretty good. We've still got a lot of crashing going on. Like I say, it takes a long time to really work it out completely and stop all crashing of vertices happening where we don't want them. Down to the vertex by vertex level here. Slowly playing with it to get it to look right. Okay. Good enough for now. So now what we need to do is go back to our skin and add this as a new target at the angle that we want to add it at. So we need to be at the current angle. We need to have the edit mesh in the stack active. And just to know that there's the difference in that area now. You can see how much different the shape of the muscle and everything is. It looks more natural. It's now pushed up out of the way. So now that that's active in there, what we can do is in skin say, add from stack. You'll suddenly notice everything blows up. What it's just done is it's taken the current deformation that you've got on it, added this morph angle, which was what was in the edit mesh here, and it's gone and added it to it, but the edit mesh is still on and we still have show end result on, so we're kind of getting a double morph going on now. What you can do now is you can just turn off that edit mesh, and we're back to where we were. So we were just sort of seeing a double up of it. So now as the character bends and flexes his arm, it's automatically taken care of. It pushes the muscle up, it's bulging the muscle, pushing it up out of the way, fixing the elbow area, stretching the muscle down the back of the arm a little bit where we pulled it. And essentially you can add just about anything you want now based on the angle of that joint. Unfortunately, like I said, to get it to look correct on the other side, exactly the same, it's just going to mean setting it up exactly the same, getting the angle of the elbow correct, and then remodeling it on the other side. There's currently no way in the skin modifier of mirroring it from one side to the other. Skin Morph in Max 7 handles this really well and will just drop it on the other side for you. So all you ever have to do is work on one side. The knee joint is going to be much the same. What we can do again is turn on skin, pick the one that's going to drive the angle, pick the vertices that will be driving with the morph. I would suggest keeping this as low as possible, really, because the more vertices that are added, the more vertices that have to be saved. Add a gizmo again, and this adds a new one. Oops, I added the wrong one. Sorry, I want to go to Morph Angle Deformer, add gizmo, and we have a new base morph set for the angle that it's currently at. And same thing, we just need to go through now and actually model it up. We'll use the angle at frame 20 again. We'll do the exact same thing. So once again, we're going to add edit mesh to the stack. We're going to go about actually modeling this knee joint up and correcting it for this angle, and then adding it into the morpher. I'll go ahead and do that for us and show you the result in a minute.